I'm working on that position project. Um, but I haven't fully uploaded, but like I have all the photos.
Okay, cool. No problem. Um, Sweet. So I'll have you upload those when we finish. I just really want to introduce the final project to you guys, just so you guys have an introductory to that. Show you some examples, so you understand what we're looking to do with the final project. We are going to have a couple weeks to work on it, but I just wanted to put that out there for you. So let me share my screen real quick. One second. All right. So basically, the final project is going to be a designer statement. On the screen here, I have a designer statement of one of the students that I had, and I'm just using an example. I'm going to actually show you a couple of these. So basically, let me give you a little bit of an explanation of the designer statement and what it is. Okay. The designer statement is a photo essay. You're going to write an essay talking about who you are as a designer. What are your inspirations? What are your motivations? What are the things that make you up as a designer? The designer statement, one big thing I want to note about the designer statement is when somebody asks you who you are as a designer, or how to describe yourself as a designer, oftentimes the only thing people use as an explanation is their aesthetic. um, your aesthetic is only part of your designer statement. It's only one piece to the puzzle. There's so much more that makes you up as a designer and informs the decisions that you make as a designer. And so your designer statement is an explanation of those things. Who are you as a designer? After you write this designer statement, what you're going to do is you are going to take photos that illustrate the designer statement, that represent the things that you write in your statement. The designer statement is also written in first person. It's written, I was born, this is me. You're making a statement as if you're talking to someone and telling them about yourself as a designer. It is not only your background and your bio, your background is part of your designer statement. You as a designer, multi you made up of multiple different things, and there's multiple different things that inform how you approach design in whatever field of design you're in. So I'm just going to read the designer statement real quick, and then we're going to look at the photos, and then you're going to have an example of what a designer statement is. So I was born and raised in Bangkok, Thailand. Bangkok is a big city with a huge diversity in culture and languages. I grew up in pretty conservative family. As much as I love fashion, I didn't get to explore these trends and styles much of the time due to the fact that I could only wear certain things around my family. In Thailand, people look up to the idea of being very skinny and have pale skin is beautiful. I'm not a person that most people consider skinny because I have bigger hips and thighs than their standard of beauty. This causes me to style clothing that will fit. Whoops, sorry, bouncing forward faster. This causes me to style clothing that will fit a person um, that won't fit into that perception, such as oversized shirts and wide leg pants. Confidence is important to me. One of the ways that I feel confident is through wearing comfortable clothing. The comfortable clothing helps me feel relaxed and free on my skin. Growing up in a conservative family with experiencing both cultures are gifts to my creativity that I will exploit in my design. Being multicultural individual opens up my eyes to a bigger perspective of fashion and why we wear what we wear. When I moved to the United States, I learned that Western culture is very much different than the culture of Eastern countries. And when it comes to fashion, back in my hometown, women wear more proper clothing and different fabrications than in the US. Many design silhouettes in Thailand are often made of silk, satin, polyester, cotton, and chiffon. There are not many, one sec, Thai designers who expose clothing that show too much of the wearer's body. When you think about Thailand, many people think of colors such as gold and red. Unfortunately, in modern days, Thai designers don't incorporate these colors in their designs anymore because they consider these colors to be too old fashioned. They prefer plain and safer colors, beige, white, and black, navy, and blue instead. I believe in Western fashion is more of a self expression where people just wear whatever they feel comfortable in relating to the most update fashion trends. Popular trends in Western culture, such as neon colors, crop tops, mini dresses, are considered to be inappropriate Eastern culture. One of the biggest trends in the United States that I've experienced is athleisure wear, the summation of athletics and leisure wear coming together in comfortable outfit. It is a trend that athletic active wear are worn for other purposes as work clothes, um, casuals to schools, social occasions, and they're often made with stretchy fabrics. As a Thai designer who lives in the United States, my designs will incorporate the Western and Eastern culture together, presenting diversity in fashion. I will bring colors such as gold and red from Thai culture into my design. I think it would be very interesting to use these colors and considered to be old fashioned, being renovated into new modern silhouettes such as oversized tailored jackets and wide leg pants. Having experiences with Western and Eastern culture, I see something appropriate in each culture very differently. I will incorporate the two together by designing clothing to be worn in multiple ways, such as long sleeves tops and folded into crop top removable sleeves that come off. All right. Okay. So I read that because I wanted you to have an example of a designer statement. It's not perfect. There are some things that I would change, but you have an idea of how somebody could write about themselves as a designer. Now, to show you the photos. And this is the part where I really want you to kind of pay attention to and notice the types of photos that are included in this. For the final, you're going to be presenting 12 separate photos that represent your designer statement. You'll read your designer statement to us and you will present your 12 photos. The other thing that you will be doing for the final is you will be printing your photos. So there's a process to go through to print photos that we'll go through. But I just wanted to show you the photos that go with this designer statement that I just read. If we notice at this first photo, we see texture, we see juxtaposition, but we don't see the whole. We don't know what this is. We don't see the entirety of the piece. They've created a new picture, and that's the goal that I would like you guys to try to achieve is to create something new. As we scroll through these images, what you should be able to see is representational images of the things that were written in the designer statement. The color is golden red, the fabrics. Notice the thing that we're not seeing here. We're not seeing an entire garment. We're not seeing an entire body. We're not seeing anything in its entirety, really. We're just seeing the details and the isolation of the principles and elements of design. And representational images of the things that are being created or the things that were spoken about in the designer statement. This image in particular, I want to point out because this was shot really interesting and it could have been shot really not interesting and non-dynamic. But by isolating these details, framing it in the way that it is framed, we create a brand new picture that is completely telling a different story. We don't see the whole jacket. We don't see the thing that the jacket is sitting on or draped over. We don't see the person wearing the jacket. We just see and we focus in on the details, the fabric, the texture, and we associate these things to the person that wrote the designer statement. One second. Computer's thinking. Okay, and then I wanted to show you the printed piece. So this is also something that you guys will be doing. You will be printing and mounting your photos. So everybody take a look at this. You'll be printing and mounting your photos. And This is how it speaks together as one unit. All of these photos presented together in a unit create your designer statement. And so individually they need to illustrate something that you wrote in your paper, but also together as a whole they should tell a story, a bigger story about you as a designer. Okay, I'm going to show you a couple more that have very different aesthetic but still speak to this designer. So we won't read the designer statement, but I'm just going to show you their shots. All of these were shot in portrait. But again, these shots all create a brand new picture. They don't tell the whole story. They don't reveal where we are. They are all shot creating a brand new picture out of the details. And this is this person's board. So as you can see, we get a very different story told through these photos than the last one. Very different color palette. And we guess it would make sense. It's a different designer. And so this is what we were looking for when we read your designer statement and then we see your photos. Let's go to the next one. Okay. Here's another person's board. Again, very different aesthetic. And if we read the designer statement, we would see that they're coming and approaching design from a very different place, which everyone is. So the photo should be representative of that. But again, what I want you to notice is how close and how framed these individual pieces are. The widest shot we have here is probably the koi fish pond, but still, we don't see, all we see is two fish. We don't see the whole pond. We see just one flower that was shot with a really nice shallow depth of field. And we start to pick out the details and the principles and elements of design in this draped fabric, in these architecture buildings. And once you read this designer statement, you'll see that the student talked about architecture and how that influenced her design. Here are the photos individually. So what we have here, we have juxtaposition, we have negative space, but we don't see the whole building. We just see a piece of it, a corner of it. Because this designer, they actually talk about in their designer statement about structure and about line and about shape and form and how they tend to lean to more structural shapes and forms. And so it makes sense that this photo and this shot is in here because this represents that kind of structural shape and form. Shaped fabric. But again, we don't see the whole dress or we don't see the whole piece. We just see the details of the fabric. Okay, one more. All right, this one's very different. And I'll just pop through them a little bit. We can see this one, the color already, the color palette has completely changed. All three of these have a very distinct color palette, very distinct kind of feeling. As you can see here, florals is a big part of this designer's designer statement. But even this shot, this is a great shot. Check out this shot. So we have layers throughout our frame with this shot. We have bubbles in the background, bubbles in the foreground. We have shallow depth of field in the foreground. In the middle of the frame, we have the bubbles that are in focus. In the back of the frame, we have the wood that's out of focus. So there's so many different layers to this shot. It creates such a dynamic. But what's interesting is the colors that are captured. The colors that are captured mimic or pair with the colors that were presented previously. So this designer, obviously, we can already tell, is very colorful, very versus the other designers that we looked at previously. And this is their board. So check this board out. This board has a very different feel, a completely different color palette than the other ones, but the presentation again is very similar, and this would go with what they wrote in their designer statement. So those are three examples, some really good examples of the designer statement, and the final that you'll be turning in. So you'll be shooting 100 minimum photos in your contact sheet, and then you'll be selecting 12, the best 12 shots, to present in that way that I just showed you, and also print and mount on a board and present in that way. You'll go ahead and take a picture of your board. Because we're back in class, actually, if everyone is available, I think we will have one person out of town. But if the two of you are available, we can also do the presentation of the board in person on campus. And so these were submitted at a time when we didn't even have campus. So everybody had to take a picture of the board and submit it into their document. So that is the designer statement. So actually what's due next week is a rough draft of the designer statement and 3 test shots that would potentially be part of your whole. So that's due next week, the rough draft for the designer statement and 3 test shots. The other thing that I would say is due next week is everything that hasn't been turned in. So there has to be, we have to get those things turned in for points. And so, yeah. So next week, we're going to have the designer statement due, the designer statement draft, the rough draft. There's specifics of the length that it needs to be and everything like that. You saw the one that I just read and the length of it. They generally tend to be that long. And then there's specifics on how many photos that you need to shoot and those type of things. But for next week, it's the rough draft, so we can go over and see what you wrote, give you notes, and then 3 test shots for the designer statement, as well as anything that hasn't been turned in yet. We're going to need to have that due next week. So that is the final. That is what we're working towards. Next week, we'll also go through how to print your photos, and also look back into Lightroom at some other editing tools and things like that. Yeah, that is the explanation. Any questions?
Can you reopen the multiple objects and juxtaposition?
Juxtaposition is still open. Juxtaposition is open till Friday. Okay. So I will reopen the multiple objects. And actually, I'm going to say, because just to get all the grades in, I'm going to need everything turned in by this Friday, because just need to get all the grades in. So I'll reopen the multiple objects. If there's anything that's not open, and it's just not open and you're ready to turn it in, send it to me as an attachment in the message and make a note of what assignment it is, just in case. Like, that's just the fail-safe way to make sure I get the assignment, so that I have it, and then flag me and in the message in the subject line, hey, this is this assignment for this thing. Yeah, but I'll reopen the multiple objects, and then juxtaposition is open until Friday.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any questions about the designer statement? Did it all make sense? What I'm looking for with the designer statement? Again, I'll send the instructions for it, but I just wanted to show you what some really good examples of student work previously and how we're executing the designer statement, and the examples of the types of photos that we're looking for in the designer statement. And so, general rule of thumb, again, is that you want to shoot the details. You don't want to shoot the whole. You want to find the principles and elements of design in what we're looking at. Okay, you want to find it everywhere. You want to bring your frame in tight so that we can isolate those principles and elements of design. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. I think if there aren't any other questions, I know that we have a lot to wrap up. The quarter went by really fast. I want you guys to get all of those assignments turned in, so that we can take a look at them. I can give you feedback like I gave Evelyn last week with the assignment that she turned in. And then, yeah, this designer statement, we're going to be working towards this. So if there are any questions, please let me know. Like I said, send me a message with an attachment if it is a situation where you're like, oh, the assignment is not open anymore. Just send me a note with the file attached. Cool.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
All right. Also, if you guys we're opening the Bachelors of Design show tonight, 5:30 to 7:30. It will be open for about a week through graduation and stuff. It'll be in the gallery. So there'll be a lot of student work on display. Pretty cool display, projector driven display. So yeah, if you have a chance to stop by. And you'll see a lot of cool student work.
Thank you.
All right, cool. Well, we'll talk soon. And yeah, if you have any questions, reach out.
Thank you. Have a good week.
Okay, you too.
Bye.